This is some really disturbing news that has come out of the hostage crisis going on in Gaza. And this was, Will, a moment where we kind of all know that what happened in these college campuses was planned, was premeditated, but there wasn't exactly all the facts put together. Well, you find out that there was a writer for a Palestinian news source who was actually keeping multiple hostages who survived and escaped and were able to be brought back home. The person who was holding them captive is dead at this point. But what was exposed, according to the hostages, when they've been giving out information, the former hostages, they're not free, when they've been giving information to the Israeli government as well as to the American intelligence to say what was going on, they were told that he was using this paper, this news outlet, specifically to infiltrate college campuses, and it was doing it using a United States-based nonprofit.
So the captor was Abdallah al-Jamal, and he was a writer for the Palestine Chronicle. That news outlet is run by the People Media Project. That's a United States nonprofit organization running the Palestine Chronicle. This wasn't just someone they found in Gaza to hold these hostages for him, the Hamas militants. That he was an active supporter of Hamas. He was a spokesman for the Labor Department of Hamas. He was a member of Hamas, writing for an American nonprofit. And what he told his captors was that Hamas is going to ensure that the United States, as well as Jews and Israelis, are hated everywhere, and that Hamas in Gaza was coordinating with its allies, including its allies in the media and on college campuses, to foment hatred against Israel and the Jews.
Yeah. This is some disturbing evidence. And look, it's all reports right now, but evidence that the United States, again, a United States nonprofit, was really heavily featuring not only a writer that had anti-Israel point of view or anti-Semitic points of view. This is someone that was holding hostages in Gaza and was openly telling them that the plan was to infiltrate the United States. And it worked.
And when we would say that these protests, were not pro-Palestine, they were pro-Hamas.
Right.
The thought was that maybe this can't be organic. This has to have coordination between groups. But what we're seeing now, it was actually being coordinated with the help, aiding and abetting Hamas. This was an actual coordinated effort by Hamas.
Someone in Gaza who was holding hostages was also a writer and was being essentially funded by a U.S.-based nonprofit while telling his hostages, who are now free and he is dead, telling his hostages, by the way, I'm using this pipeline, and that pipeline is to really organize what's going on college campuses, organize the media to hate the Jewish people, to hate the Israeli people, and it's going to work. And sadly, he was right.
We know that they're at least organizing
at a minimum,
and using propaganda to get people riled up, foment hatred, and you've seen violence because of this. Yeah. So that is material support for terrorism in the United States. And if we know what the Attorney General is saying that the Trump administration will do, thankfully, but yes, I think that they have very successfully used their propaganda arms and coordinating tactics to further that on college campuses in the U.S.
Yeah, at a minimum, they've infiltrated the minds and therefore can infiltrate the publications or whatever it may be, or the websites and social media posts.
We did have a statement from this journalist terrorist that Hamas was in contact and actively coordinating with its affiliates, plural, in the media and on college campuses. So I think we can just assume that, yes, these college campuses have Hamas sympathizers and possibly members of Hamas actively engaging to sway the sympathies and, turn people against Israel. But we have a case where now 3 of the hostages that were held, the Israeli hostages that were held by this journalist, I use that term loosely, the terrorists, al-Jamal, they have filed in federal court in Washington state. And the case was initially dismissed by the judge there, saying that there was insufficient evidence to prove that the defendants, this Palestine Chronicle that resides in Washington State in the United States, that they didn't have enough evidence to prove that they were aware that al-Jamal was a Hamas operative. But the judge did give the plaintiffs a chance to file an amended complaint, which they did. They added 2 more captives, Israeli captives that were held. And they argue, I think, very well that they did know that al-Jamal was previously a spokesperson for the Hamas-run labor ministry in Gaza. He was open about his affiliation with the terror group. He was appearing publicly in Arabic media as a spokesperson and posting Hamas graphics and photos of his son wearing a Hamas headband on social media. And he began writing for the Palestine Chronicle in 2019 while he was still serving as a spokesperson for Hamas. So they definitely did have knowledge that he was part of Hamas.
When they say Hamas was in contact and actively coordinating with its affiliates in the media and on college campuses, not just its allies,
right,
its affiliates. That conjures up images of what ISIS would do when they would infiltrate small cells and get mass acts of violence carried out in the United States, in Europe. All of these things directed abroad or inspired abroad and then carried out on the homeland. And so what you are seeing at these protests where violence is carried out, terrorizing Jewish students or students that support Israel, those are many acts of terrorism, in my opinion. We filed just days ago at the U.S. Supreme Court fighting back against how both Hamas and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, operate and fund and further terror against Israel and in many cases against American citizens as well. Tell our audience what the ACLJ is doing in the legal system to fight back.
So we just filed an amicus brief in a case that deals with the Federal Anti-Terrorism Act of 2019, which that allows terrorists basically to be brought to U.S. courts when there are acts against United States citizens done by international terrorists. And they actually are able then to sue in U.S. courts and get treble damages. That means triple damages. And so this case is going up to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to decide, because the Second Circuit has decided that there has to be more kind of a quid pro quo of something given for something taken. And so the fact that they have to have personal jurisdiction, and Congress passed this act, and we argue and support that there is enough sufficient evidence for personal jurisdiction because they have basically consented to due process, because they pay, when they're paying terrorists to kill American citizens, that is consent, and they know that. And then the fact that they also maintain offices in the United States and conduct activities here, that is enough for us to have personal jurisdiction and pursue going after the PLO and the PA when they kill a United States citizen.